Hello, and welcome back to True Crime Guys podcast. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Michael.
Welcome back. If you're a new listener, welcome aboard. You can be a creeper.
You can.
And to all the creepers, what's up?
I think they're already a creeper.
Yeah?
We'll just go ahead and accept them in.
I don't know. Some
Let 'em
people
go
listen
through
to
the
like
initiative.
2 minutes, they hate us, and then they, they're not creepers.
Well, that's true. Okay, well, we won't include those.
I want to say thank you just off the bat to all the support, to everybody. The Patreon, the new Patreon people, we keep getting people signing up. That's awesome.
Thank you so
people
much, guys.
enjoying the John Wayne Gacy episode. We're thinking the cannibal, Jeffrey Dahmer, for the next one.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up in a couple weeks.
That's going to be awesome.
So that should be fun. So go over to patreon.com/truecrimeguys if you want to become a Patreon supporter and get to hear our exclusive episodes.
That one will be released not next week, but next, correct?
Yeah. We got this free episode this week, free episode next week, and then we're back to exclusive the following week.
Right. Cool.
So you got plenty of time, or if you want to go hear Gacy, you can do that.
Right, go check that out.
We actually did a giveaway in the first exclusive episode. We're thinking about more stuff. Anything people send us, we might divvy out to Patreon supporters as well.
Yeah, that's right. Not personal things, of course.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. I don't know.
Might send you a sock.
I'm definitely not sending my socks. I actually have someone sending me socks.
An old holy one? Come on.
You know who you are.
We recorded Gacy in this sock.
How could you?
You ready to get to this episode?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
I didn't know Shanda at all. I didn't go into that evening knowing anything was going to happen, wanting anything to happen, expecting. I didn't. Peer pressure. That's all it was. It spiraled out of control way too fast. It's something that should have never happened. If I knew then what I know now, I would have never have been there. I would have stopped everything from happening, and I would have never let Shanda be picked up in the first place.
All right, so this story this week shook me up a bit. It's a really disturbing story because of the victim being a young girl with her life ahead of her.
Right.
And really young. When we say young, like really young. This girl's 12 years old.
Right. And also the murderers when you find out
Surprising.
who the murderers are a little surprising as well. It's unsettling.
Yeah.
You don't think kids could go this far. It's just
Yeah. So let's get into the morning of January 11th, 1992. A couple of guys setting out on a bird hunting trip. They were local residents of a town called Canaan, Indiana. On the road, they're driving down a dirt road, and they see off into the woods a little bit. They see what looked like a burnt something.
yeah, something.
Yeah, they see something that doesn't look right, and so they walk out there. They park. They walk over there, and they discover that it is a young girl's body who is
It's badly burnt.
badly burnt. Halfway, like half of her body is badly burnt.
Right. And even when they saw that, they still thought, oh, maybe this is just a mannequin, or maybe this is
Right. Until they got a little closer
it's not
and,
what I
and
think, but
discovered that it was indeed a real
right.
human body. This body would turn out to be 12-year-old Shanda Renee Scherer. She was born June 6, 1979 in Pineville, Kentucky. We'll go into her backstory a little bit. Her parents were Stephen Scherer, and his wife at the time was Jacqueline. Those are her mom and dad.
Right.
Her parents would divorce. There's not a whole lot of backstory on this girl. You know, it's tragic, the end to her, but she was 12 years old. And she had kind of a
12 years
normal upbringing with her parents. She didn't have
Right.
anything too crazy. And so, like we said, her parents would get divorced, and this was just prior to middle school. So she would end up moving to Louisville, and there she would attend 5th and 6th grade at Louisville at St. Paul School, basically,
Right.
in Louisville. St. Paul Middle School. There she was on the cheerleading squad, volleyball, and softball. She was quite the little athlete.
Oh, very nice.
When her mother divorced again, the family moved in June of 1991 to New Albany, Indiana. There, I guess her mother just, or whatever, for whatever reason, couldn't stay with the same guy.
right.
There, she would enroll at Hazelwood Middle School. Early in the school year, she then transferred to Our Lady Perpetual Help School, which was a Catholic school, and joined the basketball team. Now, her jump from Hazelwood Middle School to Our Lady Perpetual Help School, I believe there was some altercation with another girl that was like threatening her or something, which
really?
is interesting when you think
That
about
is
what
very
happens later.
interesting.
And while at Hazelwood Middle School, she would meet a girl by the name of Amanda Heverin. They met early in the fall semester when they got into a fight, and they ended up becoming friends while in detention for the altercation, which is So classic. Sometimes some of your best friends you meet were because you got in a fist fight with them first.
Right.
You know, it's like, all right, we squashed it, and now
Right.
let's become
Okay.
friends. And even beyond that, they were more than friends. They would end up exchanging romantic letters and start getting romantically involved. Now, what Shanda doesn't know is that her new little fling, Amanda Heverin, has a bit of a past with a girl that still views her as her girl.
Right.
A girl by the name of Melinda Lovelace is now becoming aware of Amanda hanging out with Shanda so much.
Right.
And she's getting very jealous, and she's not the kind of person you want getting jealous, as
No,
you will find out throughout this.
Right. Kind of a past girlfriend that just can't quite let go.
Exactly. Even though it seems like it was Melinda Lovelace's decision
Right.
to end their relationship, and now
Well, just because she can't have her doesn't mean somebody else can, Lauren. Come on.
right, she's supposed to just like sit around and wait for her for
Right.
however long it takes for Melinda to come back around to her. Apparently.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Melinda, because she had a fucked up upbringing, flat
she
out,
did.
and it's not really a surprise that she ended up messed up herself. She was at the time of this incident that we're talking about, where the body was found and everything.
Right.
She ends up being responsible. She was 16 years old, but her dad and her dad was just so fucked up. Like it's insane. Like her father was was Larry, and
Vietnam War veteran.
yeah, he was a Vietnam War veteran. When he came back, he had a bunch of different jobs. A lot of them were power. Like he had a job as a mailman, and he ruined that by like 3 months in. He burned
Power position.
Yeah, he like burned the
Mailman.
mail. Yeah, that's the
guess it
lowest.
is.
I'm working my way up. Okay.
I guess it is. It's like, fuck you, you're not getting your mail today.
Yeah, I'm gonna go burn it.
Yeah. How informed are you now, bitch?
Yeah, you don't think it's a position of power? Let's see you not get your mail anymore, and then we'll
Yeah.
all of a sudden you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay,
I hear
I'm
you.
starting, and I'm also starting at the bottom. So he was
All
a
right.
mailman. He fucked that up.
Right.
He was a marriage counselor for the church.
Well, that sounds right.
and he fucked that up when he tried to rape one of the girls that was getting married.
Wow. One thing you could do to get fired.
Right. He also worked for the New Albany Police Department in 1965 as a probationary officer.
Okay.
And he was fired after 8 months when he did assault an African American man whom he
Jeez.
accused of trying to sleep with his wife. Which is
Right.
interesting because he constantly was trying to have his wife sleep with
other
guys
men
that he knew,
while
guys
he
that he worked
watched.
with while
Yeah.
he watched. He was one of those weirdos.
Yeah.
Instead of doing it himself, he's like, yeah, you go ahead, I'll watch. It's all good.
Yeah. So weird.
Yeah, and he was creepy with his daughters. He was creepy with his little nieces.
Yeah.
Now, Melinda never said that he actually molested her or anything like that, but other girls around said that he did.
Right.
So it's fair to assume maybe Melinda just didn't want to talk about it or something
Well,
like
it's her-
that. I'm
it's her
sure
dad
some
as
weird
well.
some
So
weird
it's-
stuff happened. Like he would sniff his daughter's underwear in front of company at the house, like just because he thought it was funny or something. It's absolutely
How
disgusting.
do you respond to that as the company?
I don't know.
Jesus.
And what's messed up is that his wife was not into all this weird sexual activity stuff. She was very
Right.
religious.
Constantly just trying to kill herself in different ways.
Yeah,
I mean, it's awful.
Yeah, so as he's like having her sleep with these guys, she's showing him how much she hates this by attempting to kill herself either during the act or afterwards.
Right.
And he's still forcing her to do it.
Tried to drown herself one time.
Yeah, and at one point he forced her to have sex with other men, and then she afterwards cut off sex with him for a month, and
Yeah.
then in which point he forced sex on her, and it was so loud that the daughters heard it in the next room over. And this is the kind of father we're talking about that Melinda Lovelace had.
Right.
He's also a very jealous person, which we saw with the beating up of the African American man while he was a probationary officer.
Right.
And Melinda seems to pick up some of these traits. Maybe she had it in her DNA already, but maybe it was something she observed her father constantly being jealous with his wife and all this stuff because it rubs
Right.
off. It seems to rub off on her. She's got this extreme jealousy.
Right. Yeah, I can kind of see that.
Right.
But it's odd though for her father to show this jealousy, but yet he's pushing other men towards his wife.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's just kind of.
It is
I don't
weird.
know. I don't know how the two coincide, but
Right.
it's just strange to me.
Around 1990, when Melinda Lovelace was 14, she began dating Amanda Heverin, who we talked about that Shanda is now
She's
dating
involved
in the
this
story.
love triangle type. Yeah.
Right. So she's dating her then, and around that time, she had disclosed to her mother that she was a lesbian. But as we talked about, her mother was religious, and she wasn't a big fan of her being a lesbian. But she came around to it later on, and not long after, I'd say about a year or so into Melinda and Amanda Heverin's relationship, they kind of like grew apart. They were having struggles. The
Right.
relationship deteriorated, and they stopped hanging out regularly. And around that time is when Shanda comes around,
Right.
starts dating.
And it was kind of Melinda Lovelace's idea to kind of break it off, right?
Right.
Which is odd.
It is
You
odd.
think she's done with Hebron.
Right. She thought so until she saw her with another girl.
Exactly.
And where it comes about, and this is where Shanda finally realizes that this is a problem, is when
Right.
they're at a school dance in October of 1991, and Lovelace was there and confronted them at the school dance and made threats towards Shanda.
Right.
And the threats became frequent after that. It was
Yeah, these are death threats.
she's getting death threats.
Yeah, these are not just like, oh, I'll beat you up after school. I mean, these are serious death threats.
Right. Now, how much can you take that serious, when you're talking about teenage girls, like mean girl shit, like, I'm going to kill you, bitch. Like,
Right.
girls say that shit all the time now.
Yeah.
Melinda had a look in her eyes. If you look up photos of Melinda Lovelace, I think I'd take a little more serious. She's got,
She kind of had a dark.
Yeah.
She looks a little dark.
yeah. After Hebron and Shanda attended a festival together in late October, Lovelace began to discuss killing Cher and threatened her in public. Concerned about the effects of her daughter's relationship with Hebron, Shanda's parents arranged for her to transfer to a Catholic school.
Which we mentioned
We
earlier.
had talked about. So
Yeah.
that was the threat that had been made.
Right.
So on the night, this is the night of the murder here we're talking about. So we've talked about the events leading up to this thing. We've got threats made at Shanda from this girl, Melinda,
Right.
and on the night of January 10th, 1992, we have to talk about these other girls that are going to end up being involved in this. So you've got Toni Lawrence and Hope Rippey,
Who are both only 15 years old.
15
at
years
this time.
old, and Lori Tackett, which has been a good friend of
Lovelace's for a long time, right?
Yeah, Melinda Lovelace
Yeah.
and Tackett are two peas in a pod. They remind me of William Bonin and
Butts.
Vernon Butts. They're two people that
Yep.
met, and it's unfortunate that they met because they're both they feed on each other's bad
They're
sides.
fire and gasoline.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Tackett because her background is also interesting and dark, and so she had an extremely religious, fundamental Christian mother. Her mother attempted to strangle her one time after witnessing Lori. This is Lori Tackett we're talking about.
Right.
Lori was at school and changing into jeans because she didn't like what her parents made her wear. Her mother witnessed this and attempted to choke her.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, that's how serious her mom was. So it was a very disciplined home, and she didn't like it.
Choking, that's not a very disciplined home. That's
Yeah,
that's
well,
a very abusive home.
do what she told you, and then
And
you won't get choked.
That's
Yeah.
true. I mean,
Yeah.
if you just listen to what your parents say, they won't choke you.
Yeah, well, her dad was a felon, a convicted felon. He had
Okay.
multiple felonies in his past. Lori claims that she was molested at least twice as a child. And by 15, she became obsessed with the occult. She was often pretending to be possessed by a spirit named Deanna the Vampire. She began experimenting with self-mutilation, basically cutting herself.
Right.
And after her second hospitalization for the self-mutilation, she was transferred to the hospital psychiatric ward. She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. She dropped out of high school in September of 1991 and stayed in Louisville, Kentucky to live with various friends. There, she met Melinda Lovelace. So that's how their relationship was founded.
Okay.
Just after getting out of the, hospital
The psychiatric
psychiatric
ward.
ward, she
Right.
then meets Melinda Lovelace, who could probably use some time in there as well.
Okay.
The two became good friends, and I put a little note that said it reminded me of when William Bonin and Vernon Butts met because it's just too convenient that these two got together, and I don't think this whole horrific event that we're about to get into happens if these two don't meet each other. Because
Yeah,
on her own, I don't think Melinda would do this, and Tackett on her own, I don't think would do this. But the
Yeah,
two of them
that's-
feeding on each other,
Well, yeah. I think when you kind of got that pack mentality, you kind of get that. You get to
you get
share
bold.
the blame.
You get bold.
Yeah.
You're all partially trying to impress each other.
Right.
Partially like, well, I'm in it with these guys. If I get in trouble, they get in trouble. If they get in trouble, I get in trouble. It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
you said, pack mentality.
Yeah, it is.
And the other two girls are kind of peripheral in this. Toni Lawrence, the two 15-year-olds, Toni Lawrence and Hope Rippey.
Right.
Like one of them had only met Melinda Lovelace like once or twice in the past.
Right, they were
Just
mainly
an acquaintance.
friends of
They were
Tackett.
friends with Tackett.
Right.
These two girls, and the other one hadn't even met Melinda before. And as far as they knew, this night, the night of January 10th, 1992, they were all going to be, that being Tackett, Hope and Tony
Yeah.
Lawrence, they were going to be going to a punk rock show. That was what they were under the
Nice.
impression, these two girls. But Tackett knew otherwise. She was planning on picking up Melinda, and included in the night was going to be trying to find Shanda's
Shanda,
house
yeah.
and get her and scare the shit out of her or worse.
Right.
And so they go and they pick up Melinda Lovelace. They go to her house, and in the house, that's when these two girls, Hope and Tony, learn about the plans to scare the shit out of this girl. And Melinda even shows the two girls a big knife
Right.
and is saying, see this? There's this girl that's with my girl, and I'm going to scare the shit out of her tonight.
Right.
And so, I mean, it seems sketchy, yes, but I
Yeah.
don't know that these two girls knew what they were really in for. I would hope not.
And also,
I don't think you could imagine what this was going to turn out to
No,
be,
no,
man.
no,
There's
no.
no way. Like,
No,
if
you're
they
right.
didn't know what was happening, if they just thought they were going to a concert, like a punk rock concert that night, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're going to scare this girl. There's no way at this point they're thinking,
they're like, okay, so after that, are we going to the concert or?
right, so we're going to scare the girl. Is she going to the concert with us? What's going on?
Right.
I'm sure that's probably what's going through their
Am I
head.
wearing this mohawk for nothing? Because this is not for
Right.
This is not for murder. This is not a murder mohawk.
Right. Do I need to get my murder clothes? I've got some overalls with paint
I
stains.
just need to
I mean-
know. Do I need to bring a change of clothes?
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
Carry on.
So that night on January 10th, the three girls would then jump into Lori Tackett's car, and they would drive from Madison to Melinda's Lovelace's house, which was in New Albany. And somehow Melinda had gotten a hold of Shanda's address. And so they were going to head, which was kind of in a different town. I don't think it was all that far, but they didn't
Right.
know the area well. So they actually ended up having to stop at a McDonald's to get directions on how to get to Shanda's house.
That's strange.
Right.
They do like McDonald's in this episode.
Yeah, and
Brought to you by McDonald's.
also, these girls had all lied to their parents earlier that day, and they had said that they were going to be spending the night at a friend's house.
Of course.
And I'm sure they wouldn't have mentioned that it was Tackett's house because Tackett had a reputation.
Yeah, the other girl, especially the 15-year-old's parents,
Right,
weren't
they-
too crazy about Tackett.
They were not a fan, and I wouldn't be either if I were them.
Right.
Because she was known around town to be, kind of a Satanist. She was just different, strange.
Kind of a Satanist.
Yeah, she was a big
she's
fan.
Kind of a Satanist.
She was the one that was doing the tarot cards, and she was Ouija boards and all that stuff.
Oh, okay. That's kind of a Satanist.
Right.
I got you.
She dabbled in it. Dabbled in Satanism, yeah. It's a little hobby.
Right.
Now, once they get to Shanda's home, two of the girls, so basically, Melinda and Tackett send in the two other girls, Hope and Tony, up to
Right.
the door because neither of these two girls know Shanda.
Right.
And they're going to go up there and talk to Shanda and try and coax her into the car. And what they told these two girls to say was that that her girlfriend, being Amanda Heverin, was waiting up at this place in the mountains.
Right, right.
And this place is interesting as well. This place is crazy. It's
Oh, the Witch's Castle.
the Witch's Castle.
Right. That's probably a place that a lot of preteens visited.
It reminds me of Gitchy, the Manitou episode.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it reminds me of what Gitchy is now. It
Right.
wasn't kind of that creepy place then, but
Right.
now I think it's like a touristy site.
Yeah, so these two girls go up, they knock on the door, and Shanda would answer the door, and they would tell her that Amanda Heverin was waiting at the Witch's Castle for them, and the Witch's Castle was a ruin. It was ruins of a stone home. It overlooked the Ohio River. It's folklore that it used to be the home of 9 witches who controlled the town.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like
didn't
you
know
get to you just imagine being in Shanda's position right now. You get a knock at your door, and it's these two girls you've never met, and they're
Yeah.
saying that your girlfriend
Is at Witch's Castle.
Is at Witch's Castle,
And you're like,
wanting to hang out.
Why couldn't we just go see a movie? Like, why you gotta take me to Witch's
It
Castle?
had to have seemed very strange to her.
Yeah.
But she's 12. These girls are
I know.
these girls are a few years older. She hasn't met them. Maybe she just assumes that these are some friends of Amanda Heverin that she hadn't met or something.
Right, right.
And so she tells them, "Well, I can't leave right now while my parents are awake. I'll sneak out later.
Right.
Like come back around midnight, and I'll sneak out, and we'll go up there."
Yeah.
And so the 4 girls get back in the car, and they'd go to the punk rock show to kill time because when they first showed up to Shanda's house, it was like just getting dark. It was early, so
Yeah.
they then do what they were intending to do in the first place initially, at least from Hope and Tony's standpoint. They were going to a punk rock show. They go to the punk rock show. They come back. They don't get back to Shanda's house until about 12:30 that night.
Right.
And waiting outside is actually Shanda waiting. She'd snuck out of the house. They go up, and they still have to kind of coax her into the car. She's still kind of a little weird about the whole thing.
Right.
But I guess it's actually Rippy that convinces her, kind of
Yeah.
talks her into it. Like, it's going to be fine. Come on, get in the car.
Right.
They get in the car, and in the car, waiting in the back seat under a blanket, holding the knife, is Melinda Lovelace.
Right. See, that they kind of place Shanda in the front seat in the middle.
Right.
From what I understood.
That's exactly what they did.
And then, then Melissa is hiding in the back seat under a blanket with the knife.
Right, and so they're driving, and they start talking. They start
they're
a
trying to
conversation.
coax information out
Yeah.
of Shanda
They're
about
like,
her relationship with Amanda.
So you're with Amanda Heavern, huh? Like, how long's
Yeah.
that going on? And here's unwittingly, she's just sitting there.
Unbeknownst.
Unbeknownst to her, there's, this freak in the back seats, like, just listening to it, waiting for her time. And she's sitting there, and she's like, yeah, we've been together for a little while. It's going well and all this stuff. And then out of nowhere,
boom,
Melinda Lovelace pops up from under the blanket, grabs Shanda, puts this knife to her throat, and says, I bet you didn't expect me, did you? And so from there began the night of terror for this girl. On the drive, it's constant threats with the knife to her throat. She's begging Lovelace not to hurt her. But for the remainder of the ride, she's referring to her as a bitch, threatening her. Scherer is then sobbing uncontrollably. They finally reach the witch's castle, and there Melinda Lovelace and Tackett pull her out of the car. They hold her arms tightly as Rippy and Lawrence light up the trail with the with handheld lighters.
Right, they're just trying to seeing who's around, making sure they're alone, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Melinda Lovelace then took several pieces of her jewelry, that being Shanda's jewelry, and they start kind of like deciding who gets what. They're taking her stuff and like
they're already divvying up everything she owns.
I guess Rippy liked her musical Mickey Mouse watch, so she took that for herself, which makes it not look good for her at this point.
Right.
So far, we've been kind of kind to the two 15-year-olds that don't seem to be the catalyst behind this, but they are there and they're not stopping anything.
Right. Yeah.
There was many chances for them to not be involved in this. Like when they first went to Tackett's house in the first place and were told that they were going to threaten this girl and shown a knife, I feel like they could have just been like, okay, well, I'm going home. I'm not going to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And now they're taking stuff from this girl who's being threatened with a knife.
Right.
Tackett then began telling Shanda how the room they were in was a dungeon. It had been filled with human bones, and hers would soon be joined in the collection.
Yeah. That's another time they should have spoke up.
Right.
So like, oh wait, your intentions are pretty clear to me now, and I don't like them.
Right.
Like, wait, what are we doing?
Yeah. They got Shanda's sweatshirt from the car and burned it in the cave for light, but then I guess
But
Tackett...
then they were like, oh shit, people can see this fire.
Yeah, Tackett started
put this
noticing
out.
cars driving by the cave and
Right.
started getting nervous, so she said, let's drive somewhere else closer to my house to continue this. So they extinguish the fire, and they start heading towards the direction of Tackett's house. They become lost, and they stop at a gas station to ask for directions yet again.
Right.
These girls don't really know where they're at.
Right.
And so while at the gas station, they force Shanda to hide underneath a blanket, and her hands are tied at this time as well.
Right.
After stopping, it's also important to note that while at the gas station, I believe it was Tony Lawrence who was she made a phone call from the gas station to a friend.
Yeah.
And the friend would later say that the person on the phone that she talked to had no idea anything was wrong. Tony didn't mention what was going on that night. That was another opportunity for her to get out of this.
Yep.
And she didn't. She didn't say anything.
It was. But also, you also got to think about the fact that she's lost. She's 15. She can't drive at the time. Her only way out of the area
She's
that
with
she's
two
in,
scary older girls as well,
Yeah.
being Tackett and Melinda.
Yeah. I guess. But if she notified somebody, then they're going to notify her parents, and then her parents are going to be like, well, why are you out there?
Right.
Well, what's going on? You see what I mean? And at 15, I think you're thinking it's all going to blow over. Everybody does this kind of shit when they're 15, and everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, and so from the gas station, they get back on the right path, and they drive to a patch of woods in Madison, Indiana, close to where Tackett's home was. They pulled into an old logging road and stopped. Once there, Rippy and Lawrence got out of the car, and Lovelace and Tackett yanked Scherer from the back seat. Once outside of the car, Lovelace untied Shanda's hands and ordered her to remove her clothes. I guess it was so cold outside that Rippy and Lawrence, also not really wanting to take part in this, I think, got back in the car and watched from the windows.
Right.
Shanda stripped down to her panties as Lovelace threatened her with a knife. Lovelace then scooped up the clothes and threw them in the car, telling others that she wanted them as souvenirs.
And that struck me as odd, the souvenirs, because that's such a traditional habit of serial killers, and it's like, what would this girl have gone on to do?
Right.
In the future, because it's just it's a power move.
Bob Berdella had his little closet filled with souvenirs from victims.
Yeah, most of the people we covered took
Yeah.
a lot of things as souvenirs, whether they kept them or sold them or whatever. They still, John Gacy,
Yeah.
I mean, kept all kinds of things in his house.
Watches and IDs.
Yeah,
and
IDs,
IDs. There's
class
no
rings.
value to an ID. He must have just liked to look at it
Exactly.
and reminisce on what he had
Exactly.
done. Yeah.
So that's a strange decision for her to say that, and actually, for her to do that, but then say it verbally. And,
Right.
What that was, make it clear.
Yeah. At this point, Lovelace punches Shanda and slammed her in the face with her knee repeatedly. So she punches Shanda in the stomach. Shanda goes down to the ground, and then Melinda grabs her face and knees her repetitively in the feet and in the mouth, and
Her
causing
mouth is all bleeding. Her
Yeah, 'cause
braces
she-
are cutting her lips.
Yeah, she had braces, so her mouth becomes all cut up. Lovelace then pulled out the knife and tried to slash her throat. Now they had some dull ass knife apparently,
Right.
which is it's part of the tragedy for me because it could have been over right here. If she would have slashed her throat, it's terrible, absolutely terrible, regardless. But all the girls seem to have these dull knives. Both Melinda Lovelace and Lori Tackett, both had like dull knives, so they kept trying to kill.
Right. They kept trying to kill Shanda, but it was just torture.
Not
It was
working.
just beating her almost.
Yes, and it drags on way longer than it had to, with the same result of her dying. And,
Right.
and she just suffered way more because they had these dull knives. If she would have slashed her throat right there, it would have been over within a minute. But she ended up
And that's
getting a
just-
lot more torture throughout the night.
And that's
because
foreshadowing. Well, you already said the torturing thing, but I was about to say that's foreshadowing for how this case is going to go. If you think that a girl getting her neck slashed in the woods is a good way to go, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
that
in
tells you how
comparison.
terrible the rest of the night would end up being.
Right.
So the knife was too dull. Rippy got out of the car and helped hold down Shanda as Lovelace and Tackett took turns stabbing her in the chest with their dull knives. And that wasn't killing her. So they then went and got a rope, attempted to choke her. They succeeded in choking her unconscious.
Right.
They thought she was dead. They then they put her body in the trunk of the car and headed to Tackett's house with the body in the trunk, which is just crazy. So these young teenage girls get their car parked in the driveway of their parents' house with a body in the trunk of a 12-year-old girl.
And just go and carry on like nothing's happening.
Yeah. So when they got to Tackett's house, the girls went upstairs to Tackett's room, and I guess they were doing like tarot cards, just carrying on, hanging out. Around that time, her dog began barking, being Tackett's dog, and when they looked out the window and started listening, they could hear muffled screams coming from the trunk.
Oh, gosh.
Tackett then ran down to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and ran outside, threw open the trunk, and started to stab Scherer, attempting to silence her and finally kill her. She then
There's also a time where they oh, never mind. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead.
Oh.
Carry on. Jumping ahead.
She then closed the trunk and went back upstairs to her room where the others were waiting. And back in the room, Tackett decided that it was time to go for a drive with the body. And I'm not sure exactly what her intentions were to get rid of the body, what the idea behind this drive was.
Right. I got kind of a theory.
Okay.
I think her and Melissa both wanted
Melinda?
Melinda. Yeah, I'm sorry. Both wanted some alone time with Shanda as far as the torture and the thing goes. They were kind of, as bad as this sounds, I feel like they were kind of like, oh, let's go, let's leave these two buzzkills here at the house and let's go do with her what we please. You know, because the 15-year-olds were both kind of standoffish throughout the whole thing. I mean, there was a couple times where like Rippy kind of intervened, but
But it almost
for the
felt
most
like
part-
it was just to impress them or
right, exactly. So she's like, we go off by ourselves and have a little more fun or whatever. I know it sounds awful, but I'm just spitballing.
But it
here.
is what
Not
it
saying
is.
that's why they left. I'm just
But
saying
it is what it is
seems that
because
way.
Tackett was sadistic. She was getting off on this whole thing. It seems even more than Lovelace was. In my opinion, Tackett was enjoying beating and killing this young girl more than even Linda Lovelace was, who was the one who started the whole thing in the first place and wanted to harm this girl. And because I mean, as far as Tackett goes, she had nothing to be angry about with.
Right. And Lauren's not just throwing this stuff out here just because of the case information either. Like, if you guys go and watch interviews with these women now,
Yeah.
you can kind of see how they've grown, and you can look in their eyes, see the way they talk, the way they move. And Tackett does seem a little more violent. Like, it seems like Loveless has adjusted a little better to life, even though she's still in prison. But Tackett, it just seems like something darker about her,
Oh yeah.
even now.
I think she always brought out Melinda's darkest like aspects of her personality.
She could
Like
have.
those two,
She
like
could
I
have.
said, those two meeting was the key to this whole thing.
Right.
Like, if they don't meet each other and start being friends and hanging out, Tackett's dark, like just fucking sadistic personality doesn't rub off on Melinda. Maybe Melinda adjusts, even with her terrible. I think Melinda's terrible upbringing mixed with meeting Tackett and learning about Satanism and the occult and all this stuff.
Right.
Maybe all this stuff doesn't happen. Maybe Melinda ends up becoming somewhat of a normal person. Maybe a jealous, maybe someone you don't really want to be married to or be in a relationship with. But maybe she beats up a girl instead of stabbing her and killing her and burning her and all this stuff.
Right.
I
And
don't
we're
know.
not throwing this out in stone. This is all speculation. but
Yes,
It's just the way
that's what you get on True Crime Guys.
Yeah, you get a little speck.
You get a little speculation. Don't bitch about it. You don't have to agree. You can have your own opinions and talk to yourself
Join the
about it.
conversation.
Yeah. So as we mentioned, so what ends up happening is once back up in the bedroom, Tackett and Melinda decide to go for a drive with the body in the trunk. Now at this point, they must assume she's dead yet again.
Right.
But as they're driving around, they learn that she is not dead because
Shanda's pretty tough.
Shanda seemed to be extremely tough because they kept thinking she was dead and she wasn't. Now they started hearing noises coming from the trunk yet again. And at this point, you learn a little bit more about Tackett's enjoyment of this whole thing, even more so than Melinda, because each time they're driving, when noises come from the trunk, Tackett pulls over, goes to the trunk, opens it up, and there's a tire iron in there, and she starts beating Shanda in the face with the tire iron.
Right.
And during this time, Melinda Lovelace is staying in the passenger seat, not even getting out during this. And each time, Tackett's getting back in the car and like bragging about it and saying how much she enjoyed it. It's disgusting. And this is one of the moments in this story where it affected me so much. Like when I heard this one detail, I almost like teared up. I was just like, it's so dark. I mean, especially you have a little girl. It must have hit you hard too. But
This whole story, it has.
yeah, so like Tackett claimed later that at one moment when she opened the trunk and was about to start beating Shanda with the tire iron, Shanda actually sat up with a bloody face and said "mommy" to her, and that was just like,
Yeah, she
my
was
son
actually
was
able
like,
to
"Fuck, man."
sit up, and she actually was able to speak. So,
Right.
I mean, at that time, they could have got her help, and most likely she had probably lived, I think,
Yeah.
at this point.
But that wasn't Tackett's. Tackett was enjoying it too much. She she loved that. Seemed to have loved every second of it. Now they drive around and she did this at least a few times where she pulled over and beat her with a tire iron every time she was making noise back there. And then they drove back to Tackett's house again and went upstairs and began bragging to the two girls. They actually had to wake them up.
Yeah.
Now, how could you sleep after a night like this? Now that's another thing that makes me question these two girls. It's like,
the 15-year-olds.
yeah, I mean, you must know these that Melinda and Tackett are gonna kill this girl, and like you were a part of it, and then you just go to sleep. You just go to sleep.
Well, maybe you're tired, Lauren. Long night of
Gotta
driving
question it,
around.
man.
They were probably jumping, having a good time at the punk rock show.
They did go to a punk rock show. I'll give
Yeah.
them a little leeway there.
They're probably tired, boss.
Yeah. So back at the house, they wake up the two girls and they start bragging about what they had done. And at that point, when there was all the commotion, Tackett's mother awakes and tells them, because it's now morning. Like this whole thing has
Yeah.
gone on for so long. They
Right.
picked her up at midnight, 12:30, in fact, and this whole thing had been going on. So it's now like morning, and they're making a commotion. And Tackett's mother awakes and comes in and tells Tackett to take the girls home. Party's over. Obviously, you guys haven't slept. So now they got this body in the trunk, and they've got to do something about it. So with all of them being in this thing, they go to a local gas station. One of the girls goes inside, purchases a bottle of soda, which they empty and fill with gasoline.
Right.
And Rippy apparently knew of a grassy field Now, this is one of those things. This story's got it seems like every article you read has a different little details with this thing. There's not like
Right.
a consistent consensus. This is exactly what happened, step by step through this night.
Right.
Little details here and there are different. So I've heard on one article that Tackett had this burn spot that she would go to, which sounds very probable, knowing
sounds
Tackett's
very
personality. It sounds very Tackett. It does. She would have a burn pile somewhere in the
right.
woods where she would go to burn things. Who knows
Right.
what? So it could have been her spot that she chose to take the body out to. But then I've also heard that Rippy knew of a spot, this big grassy field, which if you look at the photos, it does look like a grassy field. So that's very probable as well.
Okay.
Regardless, they went out, set it out to burn the body of Shanda Sharer.
Right.
Yeah, so they go out there, and this is an interesting moment where you see a difference in the two 15-year-old girls, Hope Rippey and Tony Lawrence. When they get to and they're intending to burn the body, they get to this spot. Tony Lawrence refuses to get out of the vehicle. She doesn't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, she's like, I'm done.
And you see Rippey wanting to impress the other two a little bit more. So when they open the trunk, Rippey sees a bottle of Windex in the trunk and
Right.
grabs it and sprays Shanda with it and starts taunting her. You're not as hot as you thought you were now, are you?
Right.
Which is kind of like a weird.
That is a weird thing.
Part of me pictures Tony Lawrence as like maybe she got a little bit of sleep and this is all becoming like reality to her. Like we really did this, and it's like I can't believe I was a part of this, and
Tony,
I'm not
who's
getting
still
out.
in the car.
I want to just pretend this didn't happen. I'm staying in the car. Let's just be done with this
Yeah.
type of situation. And then Rippy still trying to prove that she's cool, she's down.
Yeah.
So they then remove the rest of Shanda's clothing and wrap her in a blanket and dump the gasoline on her body. They poured a significant amount of the gasoline on her, and it was Tackett that struck the match and threw it onto Scherer's gas-soaked body.
God.
And it would end up burning half of her body. It was cold out, as we said. This is
Yeah, like the autopsy showed that she had actually breathed like soot into her lungs.
which is it just makes everything so much worse because it's
Which-
like she wasn't dead still.
Exactly.
Still
Which is
was not dead.
confirmation that she was breathing while
Yes.
she was burning.
Yeah. So after all of that, the tire iron, the stabbings, the beatings,
Right.
all night torture, basically, she still ends up dying from the fire that they set to
Burned alive.
try and disguise her
God.
body. And so you want to get a little bit into the aftermath of. We talked about how the body would be found the next morning
Right,
by
right.
some hunters, and
Yeah. So on the next morning, this is January 11th, 1992, which where we started. Shanda's father had noticed she was missing, and he filed a police report,
yeah,
which happened to line up with the confession by Tony Lawrence. Because after Lori Tackett had dropped off Lawrence,
Tony just ate away at her.
yeah, it just ate away at her. She just broke down. She told her mom everything.
Right.
Her mom immediately drives her down to the station.
So this might be proof that Tony, of the four, was the most normal and just got caught up in this whole thing.
Right.
You know, there were several times where she didn't want to play a part in it. She was there. She definitely at fault and
Yeah.
should have been prosecuted for her part in it, for being there and not doing anything, not doing anything to stop it, and sticking around to be there during it. She had times where she could have left at the gas stations and whatnot.
Oh yeah. She had chances, but
She did. But
once
she
you're
does
in
show
it-
remorse immediately. She does tell her parents, who tell the police the very next day.
right. And so that leads to Lovelace and Tackett basically being arrested based on Tony's statement and the positive identification of the body that was found by the hunters at the same time.
Right.
Which everything lined up almost perfect.
And these girls, being Tackett and Loveless, had a reputation already. So in the community,
Yeah, yeah.
because this is a small town, a very small town. I mean, there's not a lot of murders going on here.
Right.
This whole county only had like a handful of murders over a 12-year span.
I think this is still one of the most gruesome murders
And
in
it's
Indiana history,
and it's
I believe.
and it's a stain on their reputation. This town, from what I understand, hates this case because they feel like this is what people know about this town.
Like the Gitche Manitou.
Right.
Small town, nice peaceful town, and then that happened,
Yeah.
But all four girls were tried as adults because of that, because of the gruesome nature of the crime.
Yeah.
But none of them were 18, obviously, at
Yeah.
the time of the murder. But they all accepted plea bargains. in order to escape the death penalty, which I think that's smart, I guess, as a minor. You got
Yeah.
your whole life ahead of you. You might get out, good behavior, who
Right.
knows. And because each girl had, somewhat of a troubled past, the court ultimately gave them much lighter sentences than what someone else being tried as an adult, I guess, would have.
Right.
So they didn't get life.
Right.
So I guess that's saying something.
So Lovelace and Tackett would be both sentenced to 60 years. This was in 1993. They are still in prison serving their time in the Indiana women's prison. They could both be released on good behavior by 2020. Lovelace, it's kind of interesting. She's changed.
Yeah, this kind of
At least-
relates to what I said earlier.
Right.
About like if you look at interviews of Lovelace and things now, like Lovelace is training support dogs now.
Yeah.
For blind people or for people with like anxiety,
Right.
epilepsy dogs, I would think, things like that. And this
And
is
what's
kind
strange
of
is how
Yeah.
Shanda's mom has actually kind of, she obviously hated her for a long time, but
I wouldn't say she's forgiven her if that's what you're about to say, but I think that she's healing.
it's interesting how it happens because Shanda's mom gets wind that Melinda Lovelace is in prison and she's training these
Like support dogs.
support dogs for blind people and whatnot.
Right.
And it's like become a calling for her, and like she's well respected in the prison for training these dogs,
Right.
and it's like she loves it and everything. And so Shanda's mom hated her for all these years, but when she finds this out, she gets a video from a guy who's been dealing with her with Melinda in prison.
And this is all beknownst to Lovelace too. Like Melinda
Right.
Lovelace doesn't know that she's being filmed
Nor would
to
she
be
ever-
shown to Shanda's mother.
Nor would she ever expect Shanda's mother to forgive her for what she had done.
Right.
And one day she gets given a dog by Shanda's mother to train for her program with the support animals, which
Right.
is pretty crazy. And there was a lot of controversy, and a lot of people criticized Shanda's mom for this. And I just feel like it's her decision. It was her daughter.
Well, yeah, and
If she wants to maybe not forgive, but move past it, and maybe this is her way of helping her move past it and get rid of her
Right.
hatred. Why carry around the hatred forever? It doesn't change anything.
right, and this was like 20 years later as well.
Yeah.
This was like 2012, I believe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at some point,
You got to move on.
your daughter's not coming back.
You got to quit holding on to the hate.
Right.
Because like we said,
I think it also, as much as it helped, Melinda Lovelace, I think it helped Shanda's mom even more
Right.
to just heal.
Maybe it took
and
a
be
weight
like,
off of her shoulders.
Right.
Yeah. And so, as we mentioned, they're still in prison being Lovelace and Tackett. Tackett, I don't think shows the same kind of growth we mentioned.
No, every interview with her, like you see her, she's still in her like prison dress
Yeah.
and everything like that. Like you see Lovelace, and it's like she's wearing like regular clothes. She's like got a job in
She's-
prison and stuff. It's
Yeah,
just,
she's given a little bit of freedom and like
Yeah.
they trust her.
and it's odd that like you see the interviews with Tackett, and I'm not saying that she's a problem prisoner or anything, but they only show her from like the shoulders up. So
Right.
you don't know if she's sitting in the chair with handcuffs on or whatever. She's wearing like an orange jumper and like
Right, she's like Hannibal Lecter, the face mask on.
right. Yeah.
Hello, Clarice.
They untie her with a stick.
Yeah. Now, the other two girls are now out. Rippy initially got 60 years, but after appeals, her sentence dropped to 35 years. She was released in 2006.
Right.
So she's been out for a while.
Only served like half of her 35-year sentence.
Right. Lawrence, who was arguably the least involved, she was sentenced to 20 years, and she was released in 2000. So she's already been out for 17 years. And
Right.
she, came out and said that she didn't like what happened that night. She didn't want to be a part of it, yada, yada. But she
Right.
was. She was
She
there.
was a part of it.
Yes, she was. Shonda's father took this whole thing especially hard, her real father. He basically gave up on life afterwards, after hearing about her terrible death.
Right.
And took to heavily drinking for many years, and he would end up dying in, I believe, 2012.
Yeah, at age 53.
53 years old, he would die from liver failure
Right.
from all of the heavy drinking. You want to talk about Heverin, who had an ongoing battle with Shonda's mother?
Right. So this is Heverin. This is the girl that kind of caused this love triangle.
Granted,
I
she had
guess.
nothing to really do with it other than
Right. We haven't mentioned her in a while, but she's still a big part of this.
right. And she's been interviewed by Dr. Phil, which he went after her, and I
Oh,
found it kind of weird because I watched it and I'm like, what?
I didn't like the
He
way
seemed
that
to
was
blame her.
done
Like, he's-
because, and on that show, he's like roasting her on stage,
Yeah.
and then they got Shanda's mother backstage just shaking her head like,
she's a liar, and it's
she's disagreeing with everything she says, and it's like, it's two stories, and it was 20 plus years ago.
Yeah,
It's like,
Dr. Phil was blaming her for not going to the police right away because I guess she had gotten, told that this had happened by Melinda Lovelace shortly after it had happened or
Right.
whatever. And Dr. Phil was like, why didn't you go to the police immediately, blah, blah, blah. And she's
Yeah.
like, well, first of all, I didn't really know whether she was serious or not. You know?
Right.
You get a call from your ex-girlfriend saying that I killed your little new fling. And you're like, I'm not so, do I really go to the authorities on this right away? Or,
right. In hindsight, you do.
Yes.
But I understand
can
what you mean.
see
It's
her-
like what you talked about earlier with
Girls threaten each other
Well,
all the time.
teenagers
Yeah.
in general, emotions and passions are
Yes.
wide open. They're flying. People say all kinds of shit they don't mean. I'm sure we all have people in high school we need to apologize to. It's a
Yeah.
thing, but
It seemed like it was just trying to be dramatic for TV, and he was going after
It
her. And it's like
was.
she ultimately was not there that night. She had really nothing to do with it other than the fact
Right.
that she was the reason that Melinda Lovelace was so mad.
yeah,
That was other than that, she didn't have anything to do with it.
right, exactly.
If anything, she was just a little female pimp, and she was going from girl to girl, getting girls fired up. I don't know.
Was she?
Yeah.
Is that how you want to put it? All right. Yeah. Well, it all came across very Jerry Springer to me. Like
It
that whole way that it was done. It was
You mean to tell me you didn't go directly to the police? That guy.
okay. Yeah. And Shanda's mom though too. Like the way she was reacting and the way it was filmed, and Shanda's older sister was there as well. So it's kind of like they were all teaming up on Heverin.
Yeah, I mean, we're not here to criticize Shanda's mother. Obviously, she went through a terrible, terrible thing. Like losing a child seems like about the worst thing that can happen to you.
Probably.
But it just we talked about it, like I think how we would react would not be the way Shanda's mom, like being in the front of things all the time, being on TV and all this stuff constantly. It just seems, what does it really accomplish? Nothing. What's done is done. The girls got punished for it. Your daughter is gone.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's bringing her back.
I feel like it's just sticking a knife in an old wound. I feel like that's how I would
Yes.
feel as a parent. I'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to.
Yeah, and going after the girlfriend that had nothing to do with it.
Right.
Who
who was probably only 16 herself at the time.
Yes. It just
And the parents blamed Heverin, and Heverin blames the parents, and it's just this back and forth. And and at one point in one interview, Heverin states that they're like, she blames the parents, and her reasoning is because they let Shanda just be with whoever. Like they let her hang out with, they let her go to parties and stuff, and she's 12 years old. That is kind of crazy.
And that night, Shanda's parents went to bed thinking that her daughter was at home safe, and she
Yeah.
snuck out, and that's how this whole thing happened.
Well, yeah.
So I mean, ultimately, you can be as good as parents you want, but sometimes kids just do what kids are going to do.
No,
sometimes they
true.
sneak out in the middle of the night.
That's true.
If she was going to these parties, maybe Heverin was under the impression her parents let her go, but maybe she snuck out and lied to him and said she was staying at a friend's house, like all the girls did that night.
Right. And Heverin led on to act like that her parents knew everything that she did too. Like you said, that's impossible.
Right.
I don't think any parent knows everything their children do.
Right.
I know that's scary to think about. I mean, I'm a parent. I have 3 kids.
Right.
It freaks me the hell
But
out.
think back to yourself as a kid. Did
Exactly.
your parents know what you were up to? No.
Hell no.
Exactly.
So it's scary. But she had what I was getting. The point I was getting to was that Heverin said that Shanda had been with even older boys than her.
Mm-hmm.
So even older than 16 years old, and she claimed that her father and her mother knew about this stuff and did nothing. So they were kind of constantly putting her in the line of danger, something to happen.
Wow. It's just dumb. It's like we said, what does this accomplish? Taking shots at each other now, like 20 years after the fact, 25 years after the fact. What is it?
Yeah.
What does it accomplish?
Doesn't accomplish anything.
Nothing. So just stop.
All right.
Let it be.
So any more thoughts?
Nope. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I mean,
It was a little darker of an episode for us, a little less humor.
Yeah, like
which
last week's
we get that
was-
way with kids for some fucking reason.
Well,
I don't like kids stories.
I think you just don't like kids in general. I don't like kids.
I know. I love kids.
Let's not
That's
talk
why
about-
I don't want to talk about kids' murders.
I know. Well, you chose this topic, Michael.
I know. It's interesting. It's
is.
interesting.
It is. It's
know.
dark. It takes you down a dark path, and that's sometimes our podcast is like that. And last week we were so upbeat, and there was a lot of jokes flying. This one there wasn't a whole lot of jokes to be had. It was a 12-year-old girl being tortured.
Well, there's a lot of people that hate our jokes, so this
so
will be a
this
good
one's for you.
episode for them.
Cheers to you guys.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you got a
You sit
depressing
there and don't
episode. I hope
laugh.
you like it. Yeah, so that's about it. You want to get into some shout outs and stuff? And
Okay, so first and foremost, thank everyone for iTunes reviews.
Yeah, they're huge.
iTunes reviews are huge for us. They grow our podcasts. They get us out there.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
We've gotten so many since the last time we did iTunes shout-outs that we actually
it's been a couple
we just
weeks.
can't go through all of them, but
Yeah.
thank you guys so much.
But what we're going to do for you guys is randomly select some people that rated and reviewed on iTunes.
Yeah.
Like we said, we can't go through all of them. There's too many, but just
Right.
grab a few. Mike's
It's
got them in
just-
front of you.
Yeah, these are
Just-
some of the most recent ones, I guess. Mel Mill 68 from the U.S. said, love this podcast, gave it a 5-star. Said, listen to this podcast at work, and I really love it. Jamie R. said, it was fun. I recently started listening. I like it so far. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Jamie. Fun Times by, yes, it's Jesse Y. from Taiwan, province of China. That's
Holy
pretty cool.
shit.
That's got to be our first review from China, right?
That is awesome.
So let's give it a 5-star review. Said if you're looking for something less serious, but nonetheless full of good information, try these guys.
I disagree.
Oh, you do? Oh, fuck you, man. Well, go send
guys
us a
don't know
bad
what-
review.
These guys don't know what they're talking about.
And I like this. I like the screen name. No Diggity 88 from Australia.
Australia.
That's pretty cool.
All right, mate.
Said awesome, 5 stars. And let's see, Tina Sison from the United States. What? Who is this? 5-star. Says you guys are killing it. I think I know who this is. Thanks. She said thanks for a great show.
Oh, Tina. Oh, I know that person. I know.
Thanks for a great show. And the Patreon bonus episode was Amazeballs, 100% binge worthy. Keep it up, guys.
Thanks, Christina.
So yeah, that's just a few of them, guys. Thank you so much. Like we said, that really helps our podcast. It really helps us get out there and pushes us. And we'd love to be able to one day do this like
And
full
they're-
time, so we can bring more episodes.
And those reviews are a lot of fun to read when you're on the crapper.
they are
Just gonna
even the bad ones.
So thank you for taking the time to go do that. Even if you just go click 5 stars, it helps out. And some special shout outs.
Yeah, we got a couple of them.
New friend hit us up, and he's got some awesome, hilarious YouTube videos. If you're into weed,
That's right. Our new friend dissect. He does YouTube reviews on products, paraphernalia, things like that.
Yes.
Things that you may want to use
if you partake.
if you partake.
Yeah.
If not, that's cool too.
But it's just funny, his editing and the way he does the videos.
It's
they
very entertaining.
They crack you up, yeah.
Go check his videos out. Hit subscribe. He's trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. I think he's at like 958.
Yeah.
So freaking close.
So search him out on YouTube, dissect,
Right.
and check out. He has a Patreon as well if you want to
Right.
support, and that's how he buys the products that he reviews.
Right,
with
and
the
that's just
money.
patreon.com/dissect.
Yeah.
You can find him on Instagram, Twitter. Yeah, hit him up. Super cool guy. Super fun to talk to.
Also, our buddy at work, Justin.
Yeah, Justin just started listening this week, and I think he's pretty much listening to everything.
Yeah,
almost.
and he sent us over a picture of a creep van called the Creep Machine that's local in
Yeah.
Vegas, and we put it on our Instagram. So check out
Yeah,
True
go
Crime
check that
Guys
out.
at True Crime Guys on Instagram, at True Crime Guys on Twitter, and
Yeah.
you can see that photo. It's awesome.
It is the perfect van for us.
Yeah, we definitely need to buy that thing.
Right.
Get
Whatever it takes.
Support Patreon, guys. We'll get it.
Exactly.
Our email is truecrimeguys@gmail.com.
Yeah, we haven't plugged our social media stuff in a while.
Yeah, our website is truecrimeguys.com. That'll take you over to
It's
our
hard to
website.
remember all our stuff.
And on our website, you can get stickers. You can get the original True Crime Guys Creeper Van stickers.
Right.
We still got a ton of those. And you guys just donate
Yep.
whatever. Just click on donate and just send us a few bucks and we'll send you some stickers.
That's right.
Our Patreon,
got?
we already talked about Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else we got?
You want to talk about merch? We're going to have merch very soon.
We are. We're going through a new site. It seems to be pretty cool. We're working through that now. Hopefully the store will be available maybe this weekend.
Yeah, so
Maybe
keep
by
your eyes
Monday.
up. We will put
We'll post.
the link in the description for this episode.
Yeah, we'll have Making Murder Charming gear and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Keep
the creep-
Creeping gear.
Yep.
And maybe some stuff with our podcast logo on it, stuff like that. So
Yep.
you guys keep your eyes open.
Yep.
There's going to be all kinds of new shit coming out.
Yep. BeanGenius.com.
Oh, we're doing Bean Genius?
We're going to do Bean Genius.
All right, we love coffee.
We love coffee. Creepers love coffee. Go over to BeanGenius.com. They've got a bunch of great coffee on there. They're very picky about the coffee they choose. And if you put in the code word CREEPER at checkout, you save 10% on anything in their store.
I think I paid full price.
You can
Son
even-
of a bitch.
I'm not a creep. So, yeah, what else? Is that it?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging in with us. And
Hanging
know
in
why
with
it's all-
us.
I
Why
don't
don't they
know
hang out with us?
I don't know why we're ending this one so awkwardly.
This is super
It's a very
awkward.
unprofessional episode. I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's not. It's not unprofessional. I think we're as professional as we usually are.
No way.
No way. No way.
Get real.
Get real.
All right.
All right.
See you guys.
Keep creeping.